How is it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another review. Today we're going to be reviewing this 2005 Mustang GT. Now personally, I actually really love this car, and I'm definitely looking forward to this review because if you are subscribed to my channel, you do know that I actually have a 2008 V6, and these S197, the first gen S197 Mustangs, were pretty much the first generation to have that modern retro design that really brought back the silhouette of the 1960s Mustangs. And honestly, there were so many different special editions and renditions of these Mustangs that I can't even list them all. I do know, however, in 07 or 08, they did bring back the Shelby GT500 with this body style, and the production of those S197 GT500s basically ran from then all the way up until 2014. And then of course they have been reintroduced in the S550 body styles in 2020. But anyways, talking about this specific 2005 Mustang GT, this one is actually finished off in the torch red Ford factory paint color, and I really like how the owner basically just went with simple aesthetic mods and has a bunch of black accents to really complement the torch red factory paint color. For example, just some like minor things like this chin spoiler up in the front, as well as like blacking out the pony badge and then moving along to the sides with the black American Muscle wheels and the blacked out GT badge, and of course the 15% tint on the side windows here. And then moving to the back, previous owner actually did black out this rear GT badge, install the Gen 5 taillights, and then put that kind of cover over the trunk area right there. It's actually not paint and it's not a wrap. It is a pre-made cover, I do know, from American Muscle. Also, like I mentioned before, 2005 was a very special year just in the history of the Mustang, because they really reintroduced this modern retro design, and the sales from 2005 actually was over 160,000 units sold. Now that's definitely not the highest selling Mustang. I'm pretty sure the 65 or the 66 Mustang actually still holds the record for the highest produced Mustang, but the 160+ thousand that were sold in 2005 definitely was a very noticeable jump from the 2004 units, which was basically right under 142,000. Now I know I did mention the wheels before, but I did just want to talk about these 18-inch American Muscle wheels. Again, I think they go fantastic with the car, and underneath the wheels you can actually see bigger brakes than the ones that come on this car from factory. And believe it or not, these brakes are actually Brembo brakes. They just don't say them on there, and they're remanufactured GT500 brakes. So they're basically just the GT500 brakes for, I guess, the S197 GT500s. In the rear, the brakes are stock though, but the owner basically found a kit online, and he basically just installed the front ones, and he says that they work great. Now also, these 18-inch American Muscle wheels are wrapped in Continental Extreme contacts all the way around, but it is a stagger setup. So in the front you do have 255s by 45s by 18s, and then in the rear you have 275s by 40s by 18s. And these tires definitely do look more of like a sporty tread, I guess you could say. They definitely do look more of like a summer tire as opposed to an all-season tire, so I'm sure you definitely get a lot of grip from that. But again, these Mustangs are notorious for not having a lot of grip, and that's because of the very dated yet simplistic suspension with the traditional McPherson style struts all the way around, and of course the infamous live axle in the rear that is typically found on any Mustang made before 2015, when Ford actually went ahead and made the independent suspensions for the S550s, which is again just kind of comical that Ford waited all that time to actually make a Mustang with an independent suspension in the rear. Now this specific 05 Mustang GT does have Ford Racing lowering springs, it has different sway bars, and it also does have a BMR control arm relocation kit. So it definitely does handle, I guess, a little bit better from factory, and I'll try to notice that on the drive today. But again, these Mustangs are kind of notorious for not handling that well. All right, guys, so now that the hood is popped on this 2005 Mustang GT, again, you can see that strut brace right up there that I mentioned before. And also, speaking about the suspension, underneath there, I just noticed that that cross member is definitely not OEM either, so that's something aftermarket as well, that the current owner, I guess, doesn't really know the company or whatever, but something done by the previous owner to this car. Now, of course, you can see the 4.6 liter single overhead cam, 3 valve per cylinder V8, and this engine does make an even 300 horsepower at 5,750 RPMs and 320 peak foot-pounds of torque at 4,500 RPMs. And just like how this car does have a few aesthetic modifications, it does have a few power mods as well, including a JLT cold air intake, BBK long tube headers that you actually can see right down there, and they look really good. It also does have BBK high flow cats and a pipes muffler delete, so it definitely has a very good sound to it. And then you do have a aftermarket throttle body right here. The current owner actually doesn't know what company it is. He's assuming it's BBK because a lot of the stuff on this car is BBK, but again, that's definitely not OEM. And last but not least, this car does have a Bama tuner, and it is actually apparently tuned by Lido as well. And I know I mentioned this before, but going back, this engine again does have 3 valves per cylinder, and they're basically just 2 intake valves and 1 large exhaust valve, along with, of course, a variable valve timing and it's basically these things was something that Ford kind of experimented with in both the 4.6 liter engine that's found in the Mustangs and the 5.4 modular engine that's actually found in the early 2000 F-150s. Now, these 3 valves do kind of have a bad reputation when it comes to making or handling like very serious power, or especially like when you throw a boost at them. I know that they're definitely not super reliable when you throw a boost at them, again, unless you build like the entire engine, but they are a pretty damn reliable and decent performing naturally aspirated power plant. And if you have a Mustang like this, or like you want to go for like a simple build, I'd definitely say a 4.6 3 valve with a few bolt-ons is a lot of fun. Now, with the 2 smaller intake valves and the 1 larger exhaust valve that these 3 valve engines do have, they also do produce an amazing exhaust tone, and they sound just really good. This engine does deliver its power through a 5-speed manual gearbox, and the miles per gallon are actually really not that bad for a V8. It gets 15 miles per gallon during city driving and 23 miles per gallon during highway driving, for a combined average of around 18 miles per gallon. Of course, when it's stock. I mean, I'm sure this car with a few bolt-ons as well as the tune is definitely guzzling a little bit more gas. Now, another thing I really like about these Mustangs, or I guess this generation Mustang, is the interior. A lot of you guys know on my channel I don't really care about the interior that much, and that's why I like this interior, because again, it's very simple. You have your radio right here. Now, the owner actually does have a MGW short shifter, and that is definitely a must-have on these Mustangs, because these OEM, I guess, throw between the gears is just kind of ridiculous. But anyways, now I'm going to actually take this thing out for a drive and show you guys my initial reactions. So as you guys saw right there, this car definitely does sound really good. The combination with the long tubes, and again the high flow cats and the muffler delete, and I was actually just telling the owner, this is my first time driving one of these Mustangs with a short throw shifter, and it definitely is amazing how, as you can tell right there, I kind of bucked it, but it's definitely amazing how different it feels with the short throw. And honestly, I don't know if I like it, I don't know if I dislike it. I have mixed feelings about it, let's just put it that way. But the OEM throw for both the V6s and the GTs, it's the same exact gearbox. It's just a very long throw, and when you get one of these short shifters, it's very notchy. That I definitely love about these Mustangs is kind of honestly the way that they handle. I know I was kind of ripping on it before when I was doing the walk around, but it's a very like an old school feeling car, you know. These cars don't have a crazy amount of power, everyone knows that. Again, the 3 valves, when compared, especially when compared to the modern Coyotes and like the 3rd gen Coyote that just came out, that's ridiculous. It's an amazing engine. but these through valves kind of get ripped on a lot. But in the grand scheme of things, like with a car like this, you definitely don't need a lot of power to have fun. And with the live axle in the rear, and if you have it turned even a little bit, and you guys can probably tell it was drizzling before and it's drizzling a little bit now, this car will get sideways on you super quick. I mean, it's a fun thing, but again, it's also a bad thing. And if you're an inexperienced driver and you get this car, I would definitely, again, say be careful with something like, because if you don't respect like these older Mustangs, and I mean, even the newer Mustangs are still light in the rear, like they will definitely bite you in the ass. And that's why you see all these compilations of Mustang drivers leaving car meets, because they're definitely a driver's car. And unfortunately, you know, people just go out and buy them, especially like GT500s or other Shelbys, and they have ridiculous amounts of power, and for the most part the chassis is still like a regular Mustang, and you see them just wrapping it around poles. You also see that with, you know, Hellcats as well. Obviously the used car market is absolutely crazy, but as the years go on, you can definitely find one of these older you know, 05 to 09 Mustangs, whether it's a V6 or a GT. You can find them like sub 10 grand, and you can find good ones that are sub 10 grand as well. Yeah, and today is definitely not a day to go crazy with this car. Because again, the tires that it has are more sportier tires. The tread's not like an all season, and it is wet out. And I mean, it's fun to push it a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately today with the rain that we've had, I can't really push this car like how I would want to drive it. And also the owner actually does have, I guess, the privilege of, you know, working at a shop and having a lift. He does know that this specific car does have 355 gears in the rear. He doesn't know if it's like that OEM or if the previous owner did that. And to be quite honest with you guys, I'm not entirely sure either. So if you know, let us know down in the comments below. But I'm pretty sure that the OEM gears are longer. I think they're like 335s or something. But you don't really need like super steep gears with this car. Like you don't need 410s or, you know, 375s or something like that. Because this car is like a lot of fun how it is, and when you're cruising, like you could keep it at low RPMs and like a higher gear, and not just, I guess, save on gas, but also just not be completely deaf by the end of your drive as well. And also, speaking about the rear, the one other main difference between the GTs and the V6s is that these GTs did come with LSD from factory, whereas the V6s did have that open rear, which is another great thing if you're going to take this thing to a drag strip or the track or whatever. But again, you do have to be careful on public streets. Even though this car definitely doesn't make a crazy amount of power, I know I've reviewed some high output vehicles on my channel. But even though this car does not make a crazy amount of power, it really doesn't have to. Like it's so much fun, and it being a Mustang, it being, you know, light in the rear, it definitely gets squirrely super quick. And of course the wet roads don't help either, but this car is a ton of fun to drive, and it's definitely a driver's car. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but if you don't respect this thing, it's gonna bite you in the ass. And I've mentioned this countless times in the past, but I do love like reviewing and driving all-wheel drive cars because of how amazing they take corners. But something like this, I feel like there's just nothing better than something like this. It might not be the fastest, and it's definitely not the fastest around corners, but it's just so much fun. It really doesn't have to be the fastest, let's put it that way. Now anyways guys, that's pretty much just gonna wrap it up for this review. If I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. And also let me know what you guys think of these S197 Mustangs. And like always guys, thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.